Thank you. Um, I apologize to those on Zoom because I can't show it through Zoom, so it's only going to be the people here in the audience that see it. But it is going to be about climate change, and I want to set the stage with a video. I want to make the argument that the design team, the design community, is in the driver's seat to solve this problem. So I will share that now. Almost there. Darn it, I have to share it first, don't I? Okay. 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 It's a little intense, but I apologize for that. Fun fact: planet Earth is formed environment has become my life. It has truly just become my passion. Let's see if I can share this now. And I am, I lost my connections in here. Okay. Not sure what I did. Okay, fine, perfect. Let me see if I can do that one more time. Is that okay? Okay. Anyway, the environment has become my life. I'm very passionate about it. I have only been in this space for about 5 years, and I'm self-taught. I am not a designer. I'm not an environmentalist. I have never studied either of those things. I'm not an architect. I'm a business person. I have a long history of work in finance. In fact, I was a trader for a long time for currencies and commodities. I ended up at Shot Design because it's a family business. I started about 10 years ago. And in the space of the 10 years, but now 5 years, I firmly believe that I know we can't change what has happened, and I know we can't do anything about that, but I do know we can change the way we act and what we do going forward. And I believe that the design community is at the center of the problem and the solution. And so for me personally, I have taken that. I ended up in design, wasn't there before, but I thought I cannot stay in this industry if I'm contributing so much to the problem. Designers are in the center of product design. What are we making? How are we making those things? What about the processes that we're designing? What about the information that we have access to? Being self-taught, I had to learn on the internet. So the first place I went, Googling things. I'd see one source say XYZ and one source say ABC, and I had to figure out what was real. And that was so difficult. So difficult. It shouldn't be that hard. So political, so much greenwashing and advertising for the benefit of profit, and it just frustrated me so much. Advertising. What do I see every day? What don't I see? And so I really feel that we have power here, guys. Plus, especially for me, I'll get into what we do. We're commercial interior design. But all of us, I believe, sit in the middle. We're uniquely positioned because on the one hand, we have somebody paying us as the trusted expert in the room, right? It's the client, and somebody that we're helping to sell to or we're advising. And so for me, I have the benefit of saying, I want better products from manufacturers, and I can say, let me tell you about these products, Mr. Client, or the buyer, So I'm in that space. And I don't know a lot about all of your work. I have to say, last night I had to Google what UX was. But I do know that you all sit in a similar spot to where you have influence on people who have hired you, and you have influence on the people that you work with. And so today I'm going to share my story of the work that we do at SHOT and all the things that we've tried to do to correct the problems in our industry. But I want to also relate it back to everyone, every designer, and ask you all to think about what's happening now. I mean, we heard this today. I wrote down so many comments. I came in here thinking I'm going to be the outlier because I'm the only architect, like interior design person. But there's so many people who said a lot of the things I'm going to say today. Raise the bar is what I call it. But they said, who was it? Let's see. Richard, innovation, push back, rate, level up. I think he put it as, imagine what could we be doing that we're not doing now, and just go for it. Courage, bring people with you, reduce the armor, follow your compass. This is my compass, and so we're following based on my passion. But I had to make it a business case because in Indiana, no one cares about your passion, at least not if it involves the environment. So this is where my business mind had to come in. I really need to figure this out. Okay, so Shot Design. I mentioned it was a family business. My older sister started it 25 years ago. It's commercial interior design. We do not build new buildings, so we could not have built the space that we're in today. But if this space were going to remodel in 7 years, we would come in and we could remodel the space. So that's one thing to know. Most of our work comes through buildings. So most of the high rises downtown that you see, we have contracts with the buildings. Anybody who moves in, anybody who stays but wants to remodel, we would do those spaces. On average, those spaces turn over every 5 years. So think about Salesforce Tower and how tall it is. I don't know, I think it's got 40 some floors. It's been there for decades. Every 5 years, it is basically being put in the dumpster and then rebuilt. And put in the dumpster and then rebuilt. And so over time, for remodel IT, for tenant improvement, the carbon impact of remodeling far exceeds the carbon impact of building that building, which people don't talk enough about. I've really made an effort to try to share the knowledge because we have a lot of people talking about construction and new build, but not enough people talking about what's going into the interior space. And with all of the carbon reduction goals that corporations are taking on, that's a very important conversation. So that's kind of the lay of the land. We do about 1 million square feet a year, just for reference. So like I said, it was about 5 years ago. I think it pretty much coincided with the China ban. And I personally just started learning more about recycling and waste and those types of things. And asking more questions of an older sister saying, where does our waste go? When you rip out that space on the 5th floor of Regent's Tower, what's happening to the drywall and the carpet and the furniture? And she says, I don't know, let's ask. We did make an effort, just in her defense, back in 2008 when everybody was starting to get their LEED certification, to put notes of recycle and reuse on CD sets, like on drawings. But a lot of pushback from the building saying it's going to be expensive, the contractor doesn't want to do it, it's too hard, whatever. So she just kind of didn't push back at that time. But the landscape was different now, and I really felt like I could make a business case for it. Like there had to be a way, right? Because if there wasn't a way, I couldn't sleep at night, like literally. And I didn't grow up to be some environmental person. Like, this is just me feeling like there's an ethical line to draw with the work that we do. Okay, my screen is funny. I have to make sure you see it. So about 5 years ago, I started learning about the environment. We are dumping a ton of pollution into the environment every single day. Like amounts that I can't even wrap my head around 110 million tons of pollution every day. I don't even know what that is, right? But I also learned that the built environment, which is the industry I'm in, which is buildings, construction, right? And also includes roadways and things like that. The built environment is the leading cause to carbon emissions globally, and we're at 40%. So I knew that my work that I did every day was greatly impacting our climate. And I also learned that the C&D industry, which stands for construction and demolition, which I'm also part of, is the leading cause or the leading contributor to landfills. So that didn't sit well with me. Landfills I could talk about all day. Indiana has more landfills than any other state. They're growing faster than any other state. They're taking trash from other states to put in our land. And get this is the business part, right? We have more manufacturers in our state than anybody else who need recycled content. So why we're not capturing those materials and funneling them over to our manufacturers, I don't know. And I'm also involved, I think it was mentioned, in a nonprofit organization called Circularity Indiana, and we are trying to connect those dots with legislation to capture glass so that Knauf can use it for insulation, to capture bottles so that PepsiCo can recycle them. But that's not happening right now. Also, I learned a lot about environmental and racial justice. And our landfills and our incinerator is having negative impacts on those people who live nearby. Again, not something that I want to sit with at night. In case you don't know, I just want to point out that the people who are contributing the most waste, which by race is white people, are not the people suffering from the impact of the pollution. There's a very clear line drawn by race here. Black population is suffering the most, and then Hispanic. Also, to know, incinerators and landfills are, the statistics show that 97% of incinerators and landfills are placed in marginalized communities. Why? Because those communities don't fight back. They don't feel they have, or they don't have the resources, or they don't feel they have the resources, or they're not at the table. You don't see them going into Hamilton County. Can you imagine the uproar, right? Also, I learned that the countries contributing the most carbon emissions, which you can see the United States is red, that is the top tier. We're contributing most to carbon emissions, climate change. And on the right here, the white, we are experiencing the least impact, the least this is by death, so number of deaths because of climate change. So we're contributing, but we're not suffering. Whereas you see Africa contributes almost nothing, and they're suffering with the highest death rate. So again, just setting the stage here that I just couldn't sleep at night. Lastly, I'll stop with the bad news. The projected rate of growth for the built environment, and again, hard to get my head around this. The equivalent square footage of New York City, which I used to live in New York City, I can tell you it's very big, every single month for the next 40 years. And people said, oh, that's going to change because we're all working from home now. It's not changing. They project that we're going to build the equivalent square footage of New York City every month for the next 40 years. We have to do something, right? We're already in a bad state. What if we did nothing? We're literally working ourselves into extinction. So, now's the good news. Shot Design decided that we were going to do something different. We didn't know what. We knew there was going to be pushback about cost and about effort and all this kind of thing. But we decided that we were going to work differently. We feel like a market leader, and so we wanted to act like a leader and show other design firms and architects how we can do it, and hopefully they would follow suit. And we wanted to make programs that they could join in on rather than having to recreate the wheel. I've got a lot of questions about like competition, and I think in the last 5 years, the competitive walls have really come down, especially when it comes to these things. And Tiffany said earlier, like, make sure you're collaborating and sharing the mistakes and all these things. I collaborate with other design firms all the time because I don't want them to have to go through the same struggles, right? Like, I've already learned my lessons. I want to help them do the same thing, same type of things. And so in my research, I learned about the circular economy. I hadn't been aware of the circular economy. In case there's anybody in here who doesn't really feel up to speed, I wanted to include a little explanation. So we live in an economy that is linear, where we extract resources from the earth, we make a product, we use the product, we throw the product away. That's the typical cycle for what we live. Certainly in the spaces we were designing, that's the case. We made the carpet, we used the carpet, and the carpet went in the landfill. What we want to do is try to keep those materials in motion, right? So that they're not going to landfill. But to do that, you have to design in a way that those materials can stay in motion. There are certain materials you can't do anything with. You can't recycle certain materials, or it's very difficult. PVC, very difficult to recycle. No one does it. There's one place in Europe that thought about doing it for a while. Like, it's not, so why then do we use it? You know what I mean? But it's easy, it's flexible, it's cheap, so that's why we use it. But we shouldn't be using it. And my point here is designers are the ones who are in the seat that can drive that change. I have had to lean on carpet manufacturers and furniture vendors and say, what is your end-of-life solution? If you don't have an end-of-life solution, I don't want your product. I'm not going to specify your product. And that's very difficult. But we've put a lot of pressure. And the more pressure we put, the more action we get. So definitely I've seen the impact of purchasing power. And I want all of you to think about that too. I don't know where everybody's purchasing power is, but everybody has one. Everybody has an area where they can influence that change. And it's a really important change to influence. And again, just in the way of background, circular economy can be many things. The darkest green line here, this is reuse. And it's the smallest circle, which in this case indicates that it's the best option. Because if I took this table and you were going to get rid of it and I took it and put it in my home, obviously I'm not extracting any materials from the earth, not transporting on a truck and manufacturing something, so there's no new carbon impact. If I can't reuse it, what I really want to do is send it back to the manufacturer who sold it to me and have them use it as an input into a new product. Shaw Carpeting is my favorite manufacturer in the world. They have designed circularity from the beginning. They will come back, get their carpet from wherever it is. You call the 1-800 number on the back. They will make it into a new carpet. That is a manufacturer take-back program. It takes more carbon than reuse because you have to put it back into manufacturing, but less carbon than just flat-out recycling. Recycling, you put this in a metal or a glass recycling, it gets broken all the way down into its smallest pieces, and then it's made into something new, not necessarily another glass. So that is that has the largest amount of carbon impact out of these three things. But they're all better than throwing them away and putting them in a landfill. So we started with recycling, not because it's the best option, but because it was the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. And that's a learning point for everybody. Like, some people have criticized us to say, well, you're just recycling metal, but it's something. It's something that we're doing now that we weren't doing then. And it was not easy. It seems easy, right? Metal recycling should be super easy. You get another bin on site, they put the metal in it, and actually you get paid for it. So that's great. Like, that should be incentive, right? But with our construction companies in Indiana, a lot of pushback. But we had to work with the building owner and say, Mr. Building Owner, would you like to take advantage of a free recycling program? And they're like, oh, that sounds great. That's sure. It's free? Okay, sure. And so then they tell the contractor, we're going to recycle metal. Brilliant. Like, that worked. And we also have a really robust program around carpet recycling. This one was a little harder because it's not free. We do have a carpet recycling facility in Indiana, which is really great because there's only 5 in the country. So yay us, but no one's using them, And it costs to bring, first of all, you got to get it there. Then you have to pay them to recycle it. We didn't want to pay for it. We knew our buildings wouldn't pay for it. So guess what I did? Knocked on Shaw's door and said, hey, Mr. Shaw, you're so great with circularity. Will you help us recycle the carpet? And they said yes. And so the manufacturers paid for it. And once Shaw said yes, Milliken said yes, and Interface said yes, and J&J said yes. And one by one, they lined up because they want our business. They don't want to lose our business. This is what I'm saying. Lean into your purchasing power, right? And so now, no matter what job it is, whatever carpet comes off that floor, there's a bin that shows up for free. Carpet goes in the bin. Cruise Carpet comes, gets it, brings it back to their facility, and recycles it for free to the project. But the manufacturers are paying for it on the back end. So I'm telling you these stories. I know you're not probably going to recycle carpet, but I'm saying, number one, take advantage of the low-hanging fruit. Number two, for us, it's like make sure we're using products that are not perpetuating a problem. And number three, set the process up, because in 7 years or 5 years, when that carpet gets pulled up, even though it can be recycled, like, who's babysitting that? Who's saying, are you going to recycle it? Or it probably is going to go in the trash. But now I've got the carpet manufacturers tracking their product and making sure that when that space gets pulled up, that they go get the carpet. So we're trying to create processes that are like we don't have to babysit them and that they're just happening automatically. Next, this was the biggest leap. We were like, okay, we're recycling. What about things you can't recycle, like the doors? I mean, every day we get 30, 50 doors come out of spaces. Cabinets, you can't recycle those things. So we took a leap of faith and we opened up our own product exchange program, which we called Shot Exchange. It's a subsidiary. We will go pick up those doors for free, bring them to a warehouse, and then we will specify those items on another project in the city. And this is where I try to get all designers and architects on board with the philosophy that this is just a Shot design thing right now. This is not like we're not going out to the market and having days where the public can come in. But because we know what's coming out and we know what we need going in, we can be our own marketplace. It's very easy. Better yet would have been to have the building keep those things. I'm getting 30 doors out, I'll put them in my basement, but nobody has space, so they just throw them away. A big hurdle here is they're like afraid of the warehousing piece. I'll share with you in case you know anybody who could be doing this. We've all been gifted. Over the last 5 years, we have not paid for warehouse at all. But what we have done is gone to our clients and said, hey, we have this really great idea and we need your help. And they, they're like, oh, we have space here, we have a warehouse there. And so by connecting to those people in your field that could potentially help you, you get a lot of support, and these things just start to like snowball. It feels hard at first, and it's like the momentum builds, and then all of a sudden you're doing those things that you only dreamed about or thought were, the imagined comment. Like they come to life. And then what should be the most important thing is rethinking what you're using, right? Rethinking the carpet we're picking, the furniture we specify, all those things, and trying our very best to make sure that we're not perpetuating the problem. And this again goes to the leaning in on your purchasing power. And also, it's just a good conversation to have. One of the projects I've been working on is trying to get drywall recycling to our city. And I'm close. But I have been working on that for the last 4 years. And I've asked so many drywall companies like USG and those kinds of places, do you recycle drywall? And I don't mean drywall that's scrap. I mean like this is a little different because it has stuff on it. But like regular drywall that's already been used, nobody will recycle that because it has paint on it or it has walkers in it. I ask the question over and over and over and over because I want them to hear me ask the question. And I tell other people, ask the question. I know the answer, right? I know the answer, but ask the question anyway. Well then, like the clouds part in a rainy day, there's Washington State University has a research team that has figured out a way to recycle drywall. And now I'm trying to connect them to a recycler here and bring it to our city. So these things, they just manifest, If you work towards them, they end up manifesting. And they're making an impact. And that's, I guess, what this slide is all about, is the impact. So we invested in a tool that we had a consultant in California build. They're called Stoke. I met them because they also designed a tool for Salesforce that tracks the carbon and waste impacts of every design choice we're making. Now, it seemed like a little bit of a leap cost-wise, but more and more of their clients are coming out with like their ESG goals, and they're saying we want to reduce waste by 90%. They have these big lofty goals, right? And so this has actually been a good selling tool for us to say, hey, JLL, or hey, Duke Realty, or whoever it is, we can help you track where you are and help inform you as you design, because remember, the interiors outweigh the building. We can help inform you so that you, I'm just going to time limit. I'm talking too much. Anyway, so that you can make better decisions. So that's kind of what we've done. What I really want to talk about, which I only have 2 minutes left, is I don't know a lot about what you guys do. I do know that every single person in this world intersects with the environment. Every industry intersects with the environment. I strongly urge you to evaluate what your intersection is. That's how we started. What are our impacts? Are you being impacted by the environment? Are you impacting the environment? Maybe both, right? And then to evaluate how you can interact with other fields. I'm struggling with information, right? There's a huge information gap in our state, you guys. Education is so low. It's hard for me to do it all by myself. What I really want is the media to change and access to information to change and websites to work differently so people don't have to struggle for what's real, right? So how can we all work together? And then figure out what your particular impact points are. Are you working on a product that could be done differently? Do you work for advertising for someone that you know they don't have an end-of-life solution? And how can you influence that? Where do you stand on that? Just reflect on those things because it's so important. And again, I'll whiz through these. The call to action, same thing. Like, I truly believe it's our responsibility. Humankind got us here. Humankind needs to get us out, but the design team, the design community in particular, is in a very unique spot to help. And I think it's on all of us to work together and find ways to move forward. I just want to leave you with a quote. It says, "Not get through a single day without having an impact on a lot of energy." What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. So in closing, I would just ask you again, just reflect on what it is you want to be remembered for, what kind of impact you want to have. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.